So I just wanted to make a video kind of explaining on what tools you're going to need to do this yourself, what to expect, how to do it, just give you a general idea what to expect going into this if you're going to attempt to do this yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, you will need a good bench vise and bench. This is not possible without a bench vise. So that being said, you will need a T20 Torx bit adapter so that you can get these three bolts out, and be mindful that there's oil when you separate these two halves. So you're going to need a drain pan or something to catch that with. Moving on, you have these three pistons that sit in here like that. Be mindful, these little caps, when you take this off, they sometimes like to stick to there. So just be mindful when you're taking it apart that, you know, this doesn't fall out and get lost in some crack somewhere where you can't find it anymore. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to have to get a piece of bar stock. I got like a, I think that's 1/4 inch or so bar stock from the hardware store. They didn't have it in any shorter length, so I had to buy a longer length. And then I cut it in half with an angle grinder. So unless you want to deal with working with a really long piece of metal, I suggest cutting it in half. So you'll need an angle grinder for that. In order to make this tool, you will need a caliper, and you'll have to measure from center to center of these holes. And I really recommend utilizing all 4 holes. Otherwise, the pins that you use are most likely going to bend or shear like that. That's what happened to mine when I only utilized 2 of the 4 holes. So ideally, you want to replicate that pattern on here, which is easier said than done. My recommendation, you'll want a drill press. It's possible to do with the drill, but you really want those holes to go down in there straight, because if they're off at all, it's not going to fit in there. So the next thing you'll need is a compressor, air hose, and a nozzle like this with the rubber tip. So when you do get these caps off, you can go ahead and press that into there and give it a little shoot, and it pops that thing out without damaging it or marring it up. There's going to be these little springs down in there, and they sort of sit in there like that. So you're going to need something when you go to reassemble this thing, just to make sure that you can get these springs standing straight up before you reinstall these things. You'll need a pick tool to take off the old O-ring and install the new O-ring, and you're really going to want to make sure to stretch this O-ring around it without twisting it, just to make sure that it seals good and has a good chance. Moving around to the opposite side of the pump, you're going to need a 5mm, I believe it is, Allen head to take this fuel control solenoid off. And then there's a couple of O-rings that are on this part that you're going to want to replace as well. You can see the channels where the O-rings would be. This is just a spare pump. I already took it off just to take my original measurements with my caliper when I did it. You know, measured the outer diameter of the O-rings, the inner diameter, and then the cross section. When you go to take this part off to get at the input seal, you're going to need a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, and tap on it to break that loose. And once that spins, then you can unscrew it and separate that part from there. Then you're going to need a socket to drive the old seal out. I do it by sort of putting it in the vise so there's enough room, and then I tap it out with the socket that fits still inside of the hole but catches the outside lip of this seal. And you're also going to use that socket to drive it in. So after you've replaced the 3 O-rings on each of these pistons, and you go to install them back in, and you put these back in and tighten them all the way down, and you're ready to put this back on, you're going to want to have it clamped up in your bench vise. All right, so make sure you don't have this thing like threaded on there super tight so that you can just manually unthread it. Because this is going to be where you put, fill the oil back up. And when you do that, there's obviously other videos I'm sure you guys have seen, but you're going to need one of these vacuum pumps, and you're going to want to press this thing into the back of it and get as much vacuum on it as possible to pull this diaphragm back. And then basically just make sure that it has vacuum on it the whole time. Fill the fluid through here, and then get a bolt, attach it to the end of the drill, and spin this pump over multiple times until air basically stops coming out, and then you have fluid that's about level with this leading edge right there. So right when the fluid gets up to about here, that's when you're going to want to reinstall the cap, and then you can release the pressure. Something else I should note about the tool, it makes it really nice to have access to a welder to actually weld the pins into where they need to go. I don't know why I can't find the everything's a mess. I can't find the freaking other half of this tool where I already made the tool, but anyway, you get the idea. It helps to weld those pins in. You can do without it, it's not required, but it makes it nice. And essentially, in a nutshell, that's what's required to do it. So whether or not you have access to all of these tools to do it or not, it might make sense for you to either have me go ahead and rebuild it for you, or if this is something that you feel like you can take on and you have access to these tools, you're competent, you're mechanically inclined, you can do this, then I can provide you with either a kit that includes all the O-rings and stuff that you're going to need, because they come in packs of 10, and I can sell you the individual O-rings and stuff for cheaper than if you buy the entire packs of 10 to do it. So if you want to help me out and pay me to do this, awesome. If you can do it by yourself, if you have the access to the tools and you're competent, I can sell you the O-rings. I can even just give you the part numbers if you want to order the O-rings and source them from your own means. And then I have one last untested improvement, if you will, that may or may not be good for getting a little bit more pressure out of the pump. I have this Loctite retaining compound, and this stuff will seal like a bearing race to a shaft that it's not like a press fit. It's like a tight machine fit where it slides into there, but there's no play. But it will bond those two parts together. So and it's also chemically resistant. It'll hold up to gas and ethanol and hydraulic fluid and all that stuff. But my theory is that you can see the tapered edge on this and then the tapered edge on this, and it sort of makes a seal almost like an AN fitting would, right? So I'm thinking that because of the way that these pumps operate, you have the plunger that's pushing the hydraulic fluid into here, and it's causing this part to basically expand and flex out, and that's what's doing the pumping. I can see there being a leak or loss of hydraulic fluid getting past that and then basically leaking between where this is sort of sealing. So my theory is that applying some of this compound will essentially bond these two parts together and make it so that no hydraulic loss or leakage could occur between these two parts. But again, that's untested. I've kind of destroyed too many pumps trying to take them apart using these things and denting and damaging these to really be able to build another pump at this point to test that out. I've been looking for used or dead pumps, maybe waiting on someone to send me some pumps, or I could try it and, you know, see what happens. But yeah, that's just one last little final thing. If someone wants to attempt that on their own, it's a Loctite 648 retaining compound. And just some food for thought, guys.